Hello and welcome to Authentic Conversations with Janine Mason. We're talking about the messy intersection between faith, family, and business. And this morning I want to talk to you about what if the Bible is true. Now, maybe you remember last year when I talked to you about this and the Lord had spoken this phrase to me, what if the Bible's true? And I'm revisiting that thought as I go through this season of my life. What if the Bible's true? Now, obviously, I believe that the Bible's true, 100%, right from Genesis right through to Revelation, everything in between, Old Testament, New Testament. This is the true story of the Lord and who He is to us. But here's the deal. A lot of times we don't actually live like the Bible is true. I know there are areas of my life where I live like the Bible isn't true. And what do I mean by that? I mean, hey, what if the Bible is true means that what if actually He is who He says He is, and I am who He says I am? That means I won't have anxiety because I fully trust Him. That means that I walk in victory because He gives me victory. Doesn't mean all things will always be easy, but it does mean that I walk like I believe that He is true to His word. And so today I want to challenge us to believe that the Bible is true in a new way. And I want to do that by revisiting a story from when we moved here and using that to kind of thrust us into believing that the Bible is true in a greater measure. So a couple of years ago, we were living in Redding, California, and the Lord said to us that we would move to the East Coast. And very soon after that, I was sitting in a prophetic booth where people were hearing from the Lord for me. What does the Lord want to say to you? And they knew nothing about this impending trip. And a friend of mine who I really trust said, hey, I just see your family going on a new adventure. And it's like when you move from New Zealand to Redding, only this time it's going to be easy. And I was like, fantastic. This time it's going to be easy because last time we had 3 years with no income, 4 little kids. We couldn't find a house to live in. And I'm like, this time's going to be easy. That's good news. So I locked onto this prophetic word, felt like this was what the Lord was saying. Well, we started this journey, and if you've ever done a big move right across from the West Coast to pretty much the East Coast, it's not easy. 4 kids and heading out to college, all that stuff, all the things that have to be moved across, the dogs that have to be moved across, we have to sell a house, we have to buy a house. We're setting up a new business. There was a lot that went into it. And pretty soon it became to be not easy. And as we tried to work out the details and we couldn't find a house and we looked at sort of the finances of it and looked, here's where we believe the Lord's leading us. And we realized, well, when we sell our house in Redding, we're going to get this amount of money and it's not going to go as far where the Lord is leading us. And what does that mean? And so I can remember having this discussion with the Lord, like, you said it was going to be easy and it's kind of shaping up to not be easy. And He said, and I said, so what did you mean? And He said, well, if you will trust me and if you will trust my word, it'll be easy. And I realized that the things that were making the trip not easy was my own anxiety, my own worry that the finances wouldn't fall into place, that different things wouldn't happen. We wouldn't have the house to live. And I realized too that a big part of that whole trip was I knew that very likely, and this turned out to be the case, that would be the last summer where all 4 kids would be home with us because they're at that stage where they're heading off to university and internships become a thing. And so my heart was, let's have this last summer together as we, it's going to be easy meant we're going to travel across. There's going to be this wonderful road trip. We will move into our new house. Everyone will be settled. And then, hey, that means we've got the summer to explore all this new territory that's around us as we live in Pennsylvania. And as it's unfolding and we can't find a house and we're living in Airbnbs, I'm thinking, well, this isn't what I imagined, God. You know my mother's heart. Surely you will meet my mother's heart for connection this last summer together, memories that are amazing. And come on, God, it's supposed to be easy. And that's where He said, if you will just trust me, if you will just trust me. And so in that season, I had to start to say, well, what does the Lord say? He says that he will be with us, that he'll never leave us or forsake us, that every step that we take, that the ground that we step on is ours. He says that we're the head and not the tail. He says that all the power of heaven is invested in us. He says that our prayers are powerful and effective. He says that he's faithful. And so when I started to get stressed every moment that I was stressed, that I found myself, this is not where I wanted to be, I remember it's easy. It's easy if I will trust. A big piece of it was the financial piece, honestly. We ended up staying because we couldn't find a house. We sold a house, got a little less in Reading. We got a little less than we expected. And we couldn't find a house here in Bucks County where we now live. And over we would look and just nothing. And finally, we got to the point where in our third Airbnb up in the Poconos, which is an hour and a half away from where we were looking for a house. And so you can imagine all the trips down to try and find houses and disappointing trips back up to the mountains as we go, we didn't find a house again. And in all those moments, if I just came back to the Lord said he is faithful. The Lord said it'll be easy if I will just trust who he is as revealed in his word. If I will just trust, live like the Bible's true, then this journey will be easy. Is it easy in the natural when you're sitting in heat and no air conditioning in a very small and not very nice Airbnb? No, it's not simple. It's not fun necessarily. But if you sit there in stress and anxiety, focusing on all the things that aren't going right, then it's going to be pretty terrible. But if you sit there and say, well, I've kind of got an enforced vacation in this place, and I can just sit back and relax and know that we're doing everything we can and that the Lord is working on our behalf, then it becomes a lot easier. So long story short, at the absolute last minute, like the last weekend that we could find a house and get in there before the kids would move off to college, we found a house and the Lord was faithful. I remember asking or saying to my son somewhere near the end of the summer, because again, this is his last summer before he heads to college. It's our last summer together, and I kind of felt bad that it had been full of 3 different Airbnbs in the Poconos, not much fun, nothing like what I had expected and anticipated. And I remember saying to him, hey Ben, I'm so sorry that the summer was a bit lame, like it wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be and what I'd hoped. And he said, Mum, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'd imagined that we would move in, we'd do a trip to New York City and explore it together, and we'd go to Philadelphia and we'd do all these things, and it was going to be so cool. And he said, but Mum, remember when we first arrived and our friends invited us to Sight and Sound Theatre, and we got to get a backstage tour and we got to see all that amazing the things that were back there. And he's a budding engineer and he got to see the engineering behind the scenes of Sight and Sound. You want to check out that theatre, it's amazing, in Lancaster County. And he said, remember how we did that? And then remember how another friend couldn't use his tickets to go and see the Yankees. And so at the last minute, they called and said, hey, do you guys want to go and watch the Yankees from a box seat? And he said, I got to eat lobster ravioli and have an ice cream bar as I watched the Yankees play in New York City. He said, remember how we got to do that? And I went, oh, yeah. And he said, and remember how I got to go to Alaska fishing with Dad, and I ran up Mount Marathon and I fell in love with that place. And he said, this has not been a lame summer for me. This has been an amazing summer. And I, in that moment, was like, wow, God, my heart for my kids, for them to experience just fun things had happened, not because I planned it, because I had no ability to plan it in that moment, but because the Lord had moved on other people's heart, just moved things around, and the kids had an amazing time. And I realized that my heart for us to be connected as a family and laugh a lot and make memories had happened. It had happened in a very different way than I'd expected. It had happened sweating together in an Airbnb with no air conditioning and playing some crazy, silly game on the TV that the kids had dreamed up, and just because it was too hot to do anything else. And it came from the memories of sitting in an Airbnb and watching a bear walk past the window, like right there. And it had come through crying together as we couldn't find a house, and the one that we thought we were going to move into just didn't work out. And here we were at the last moment, without a house and without a plan. And as we sat together and we intentionally remembered the Lord's goodness to us, and we wrote it on a big piece of paper on the wall, the connection that I had longed for, that I thought would come in this beautiful picture of easy, happened anyway. What's the point? We can trust Him, and we can trust His word. What if the Bible is true? Well, of course it's true. And I want to ask you today, and I'm asking myself again in this season, how does my life and how I'm living, not just on the outside, but on the internal world in my mind, how does that show forth that I believe the Bible is true? Because I don't know about you, but right now in this season, we're facing new adventures. Andy sat this week at this very desk that I'm sitting beside with one of our daughters that's heading to college for the first time, and the reality of the financial cost of that was like, oh my gosh, how are we doing this? And there's another conversation to have with the other college-bound kid. Our kid that's living downstairs is starting a master's program, and that's expensive as well. The other one's heading off for the first time, setting up an apartment. All these things that are going on, all the things that are in our heart to do that we know that the Lord is leading us to, and we look and it seems insurmountable in this time. And I could feel myself in the last few days just sitting in the, oh my gosh, how are we doing this? How are the finances going to work? How is the timing going to work for some of these things? How is it all going to weave together? And as I sat in this place and I could feel anxiety wanting to rise, I thought, I have an opportunity to live like the Bible is true, to live like I actually trust what His word says, that He is for me and not against me, that He will work out everything, all things work together for good, for those who love God and called according to His purposes. That's me. I love God and I'm called according to His purposes, so that means that all things will work together for good. Excuse me. Here's the truth. As I look back to the move 2 years ago, I can see the Lord's fingers in everything, that my heart, even the cry of my heart as a mother to have greater connection and build memories, even those things that weren't life-changing, big scheme, change the world kind of things, He met. He met them differently, but He met them. As I kind of leaned back into the reality of what if the Bible is true? He is good. He is faithful. He is with us. He is provision. I'm facing that again today. I'm facing that choice again today to trust that the Bible is true, that He is true. And I want to ask you, maybe you are facing today tremendous opportunities for growth and you're a little maybe tentative, then you can trust that the Bible is true, that He is faithful as you move forward. But maybe today you are facing like crazy times, the downturn. There's a downturn for your business and the customers aren't coming in. Things just aren't going smoothly. It's not easy. It's so hard. Then you can still trust His word, that all things work together for good, that He's with you, that He's faithful. And so I ask you to pause in this moment as you come to the end of listening to this podcast. Take a few moments before you get on with your day and just lean back and say, Lord, what does the Bible say? What does the Bible speak to my circumstance today? And how would I live? What would it look like for me to fully embrace the fact that the Bible is true? For me today, as I go about my day, that means I'm choosing to trust. I'm asking the Lord, what's our part in the financial piece? But I'm just choosing to trust His faithfulness and His goodness. Hey, one of those new adventures that is happening for me is I'm actually launching a new course, and it's starting next week. You'll want to check it out. It's a kingdom parenting course where we'll talk about how to use the reality of the Bible in parenting our kids in this crazy world where all sorts of stuff is being thrown at our kids that has never been thrown at kids before, or not in a long time. And how do you parent kids in that crazy environment? So if you want to check out that or other events, you can go to heavenandbusiness.com/parenting for the parenting course, or just events if you're wanting to check out our other events. I pray that you would have a revelation of His goodness. I pray that you would know that the Bible is true, that you would start to live in such a way as to demonstrate to all those around you that the Bible is true, that He is good, that He is faithful. Have a great week.